Hi, welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered. I'm Pamela Price, your host. This is the space and the place for real talk. This podcast is all about raw, unfiltered conversations on politics, law, culture, education, systemic racism, and current events impacting our world. We'll go beyond the headlines to dive deep into the most pressing issues that impact our communities, our families, and real people. My goal is to help you navigate the complexities of today's world. Each episode will tackle an issue, breaking it down in a way that's honest, informative, and actionable. We'll hear from community leaders, lawyers, activists, educators, healers, and everyday people on the front lines of change. For those tuning in for the first time, I'm Pamela Price, a civil rights lawyer, an advocate, a political activist, and a champion of justice. Welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered. Let's talk about it. All right, today we're talking about Oakland politics, and my special guest is Pamela Drake. Pamela Drake has written extensively about recent events and politics in the city of Oakland. I know her from her activism, establishing the Oakland Police Commission, serving as an elected member of the Alameda County Democratic Party Central Committee, where she served multiple terms, and her service as the political director for the Wellstone Democratic Club. She raised her two children in Oakland and in the last decades has worked for 3 city council persons and 1 mayor, and can be found on Substack, pameladrake.substack.com. Pamela Drake grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia, attended San Francisco State, where she became an activist. We are lucky to have Pam here today to talk about what's happening in Oakland in the midst of a special election for the mayor. Full transparency, Pamela Drake is actively supporting the candidacy of former Congresswoman Barbara Lee. So let's talk about it. Pam, thank you. Welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered.
2 Pamelas Unfiltered.
Yes. we definitely are both unfiltered, and folks have gotten used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you again. One of my listeners made this statement that Alameda County, quote, Alameda County is a totally dysfunctional economic and political train wreck. And that person lives in Oakland. So that's really the Oakland sentimentality of some folks in our city. One thing I know that people have a hard time understanding is the difference between Alameda County and Oakland. So I want to specifically focus and ask you, based on your experience, what do you think about that statement as it applies to Oakland?
Well, I try to be patient, although I don't feel it all the time, but I understand that we have been through a lot. Really, everywhere in this country, we've been through a lot, and people think it's just personally their area that suffered. People always make it very personal. And we have suffered a lot in Oakland, and right now we're fairly leaderless. And that was what Oakland decided to do. So we have our good times and our bad times, and the times aren't going to get better real fast because of what the federal government's going to do to us. But it's funny that most people blame the city council for everything that goes wrong. A lot of things happen at the county level, but people don't know what county supervisors and what county government does. So they don't know to go there and try to get some answers.
What do you think would be one of the main priorities or should be the main priorities of the next mayor? We are leaderless, and whether we get, whoever the next mayor will be, what do you think he or she's priorities should be?
Well, I think the only thing it can be is trying to get the budget to the place where we can survive and move ahead. We can't predict what's going to happen in this economy, less so than we ever could before, given what's happening to the federal government. So we have to do our best to be able to serve people, help their needs at the same time we don't have a lot of money coming in. So that's the important thing, is that this mayor has to be able to pull people together, not divide them, so that they can bite the bullet and be willing to make some hard decisions, not all of which will be popular.
Well, in 2024, public safety became the political cry of everyone and anyone running for office in Oakland. Everybody was all about public safety. And in Oakland, public safety obviously leans heavily on our police force. And one of the major challenges for the next mayor and for every mayor, as you know from your history, has been the management of the Oakland Police Department, and even with the help of the special master under the consent decree. What has been the historical tension between the mayor and the police department?
Well, I don't know it's so much the mayor and the police department. Generally, because the mayor can pick the police chief, generally the police do try to work with the mayor. And if they haven't, we have a mayor like we did for 8 years that wants to spend most of our money on police, they're happy. If we have a mayor that says we have other needs, well, they're not happy. And since we have historically, back to the 70s, had problematic relations between a lot of our community and the police, and now we have a lot of new people who, because they paid a lot of money for their homes, expect everything to be perfect and inequality to not be the problem that it is. And since the pandemic, we've had a lot more problems. People are worried, they're upset, they're anxious. Notice just how people drive. The everyday person drives like a maniac now. And that's all over the country. So we have to remember it's not just us.
Thank you for pointing out it's all over the country. For those of us, particularly that live in East Oakland, I know it's often, if you're going down 98th Ave, this is, somebody makes a third lane, this is 98th Ave, okay? It's like, but it's hard when you're in the midst of it to realize that it is happening all over the country. That Oakland is no different from any other major city, whether, you're talking about Chicago or LA or New York, it's a city. And things happen in a city that, should not happen, but you can't control it all. And it's about how do you structure your life, and how do you pick your poison? I mean, people leave here, as you know, folks say, I'm leaving Oakland. Well, okay, go to Alabama and see how that works out for you, right? Go to Texas. You might come back sooner. You want to come back and can't get back. I really appreciate we spend thousands. It cost us a high amount to live here, but look at where we live. And particularly Alameda County. We live in a bubble. But one of the things that we have seen, in our politics has been the way that money has impacted politics and the ability of those wealthy people, part of the oligarchy nationally. The echo here is that now you can buy an election in Oakland. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I know we saw that people tried to buy elections. What they were not able to do was to buy elections, but they were able to buy recalls. They were able to harness anger and discontent more than people with ideas of how to fix things. And so what we saw was the real estate conglomerate very upset the fact that tenants started to have rights. And also we were the pioneers in terms of the tech bros and how they're trying to reshape our entire country. And we tried to warn people that the tech bros want to control things, and they think they're the smartest people and they have the most money, and they think they should control things. So they have done a lot of damage in Oakland, and they want to continue doing that.
Yeah, right. You could see them. I first saw them in San Francisco. We saw them like, oh, they're taking over San Francisco. And then they realized that the East Bay was better than San Francisco. So then they came over here. I agreed.
And they badmouthed Oakland to the point where property values did go down, and so they can buy things up, knowing that it's eventually going to be worth a lot more.
Right, exactly. Well, how did we get to the point where every dollar in the budget is prioritized for police and fire?
It's hard to explain. I'm not even sure I understand it myself. I think fire is really important. We've suffered tremendously from terrible fires. We know more about the rest of California learned about fires what we already knew after our big firestorm in 1991.
1991, that's right.
We have never really been able to get control of the police budget. And for the most part, we haven't had political leaders who tried to do that. So that's part of the problem, because if they tried to do it, the police union and some of the chiefs, and you know who I'm talking about, would make up stories about how they were trying to take their money away, which never happened. They've only ever gotten increases in funding. So you combine that with the fact that there's a lot of overtime, and part of the reason for that is the entire country is looking for qualified police officers, and they're just not there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to find police officers. People keep saying, all the politicians, I'm going to get us more police. No, you're not.
Right.
They're not available, and they're more expensive than you can afford.
Right. Yeah. And certainly with Oakland's reputation, it would be extremely difficult to recruit people to come here. There needs to be a sea change, certainly in my view, in the culture of the department, as well as the leadership, and what the goals are, and how we actually, what types of modern police techniques are actually being embraced in our city. And you're right, we didn't have, we don't have a mayor for a year. We didn't have a police chief. So we're just really behind the ball, still trying to recover from COVID. And there's a lot of improvement that needs to be made, for sure. So I just want to shift briefly from the Oakland politics to the Democratic Party. Right now, the whole country is pretty much fed up with the Democratic Party, right? And you published a comment on the party that you said, a quote, which was, "The Democratic Party is an exhausted and empty shell, a corpse sucked to the very edge of death by moneyed donors, a pale jumble of consulting firms trying to sell unflavored broth at the Gumbo Festival. The president dons a neon suit and prepares for live televised executions of evil gang members, and the Democrats knit their eyebrows and issue press releases saying, while we all agree that crime is an important issue, the president's methods are simply out of the mainstream. One party is out to kill, and the other is waiting for its leaders to die."
Well, I wish I had written that. I actually got that from another writer on Substack, Hamilton Nolan, and I thought it was a great quote because I heard that the DNC had a big convention that they all get together, and really what it was a convention, a vendors convention. Consultants trying to sell the same old wares, and a lot of the Democratic leaders there just to buy those wares and try to sell them to us again. And nobody is buying it. And if you look at what happened to Al Green, was it last night or the night before?
It was last night, I think.
Last night? I mean,
no, it was night before.
It just still seems so fresh in my head. Apparently, the Democrats, you know who our favorite guy threatened that they were going to hoot and holler and make a big fuss, and that was Eric Swalwell, who I'm sure was sitting under the furniture somewhere sucking his thumb instead. But so right. The only person that did say anything was Al Green.
Right.
And he's an older black man from Texas. And they decided to throw him out. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, they were nasty, nasty, nasty to Biden. We had a Supreme Court justice that was nasty. It was a Supreme Court justice to Barack Obama. No one got thrown out. Al Green got thrown out. The Democrats, I watched them sitting behind him, said nothing. And 10 of them today voted with the Republicans to censure him.
Right.
Who do we have representing us then?
Yeah. We don't have Democrats that we can hold accountable. That is both nationally and locally. We are not holding them accountable, and they are not recognizing the House is on fire.
Right.
We are living in a fascist regime. These folks are destroying the government, and you're right. I mean, they're sitting there playing tiddlywinks while the fascists are running wild and destroying everything.
Yeah.
And so it is so disturbing to see, yes, what happened to Representative Green, to see the kind of insults that, and the Republicans will never criticize Trump, right? They are absolutely going to stand behind him, no matter how crazy he is. Right. Well, apparently the Democrats are too.
Yes,
because apparently they are too.
Well, no, the Democrats are scared of their own shadows. That's actually, you don't even need to bring Trump into the room. You just need to say, oh my gosh, you might have to object.
Right.
Oh, they all say, let's wait until the midterms. We won't have a country by the midterms.
Right. He's already told us before he was elected, this will be the last time you get to vote. He said that. This will be the last election we ever have. And so, the notion that we can wait another 2 years while they just dismantle the government, disrupt everything is ridiculous. Yeah. And it is not a time for fear. It is not a time for complacency or complicity. It is not a time when the Democrats can say, oh, we can't really criticize other Democrats, or we can't say this, or we can't do that. Every Democratic Party leader that calls him or herself a leader should be out connecting with their community, connecting with the grassroots, and helping us to mobilize so that we will have an alternative when he just absolutely implodes this government.
Yeah.
That's my view of it, raw and unfiltered.
Well, I'm one of the 36 million out of the 72 million getting Social Security who depends on Social Security.
Right.
And if they think I can wait 2 years to eat, well, maybe they just don't care about me any more than the Republicans do, and that's what I have to accept, and we have to fight for ourselves. If while we're fighting for ourselves, we end up creating a new part of the party, we'll maybe have some people who can take over the party, because these guys are going to die off. God knows they should have been already, but some of the younger ones don't show any spirit either. Hakeem Jeffries hasn't shown me a damn thing yet.
Well, they've been mentored by the party machine. Everybody goes along to get along in the party machine. And look, if you step outside the party machine, look what happened to Cori Bush. Look what happened to Nina Turner. The party will turn on you if you do not go lockstep with what their plan is, which is, you're absolutely right. We watched it when I had the privilege of going to the Democratic Party convention in Chicago, and I'm telling you, it was all about the vendors, and the consultants were losing their minds. Every consultant in the country was latched on to, how can I get paid by the Democratic Party? It was crazy.
How can I get Liz Cheney in front of more faces, for crying out loud, in my home state of Pennsylvania? I mean, sad that they thought that Liz Cheney could win it for the Democrats. I don't know what they're eating or drinking, or
that they, more importantly, that they could ignore the issue of Palestine.
Right.
That they could ignore the genocide in Gaza.
Right.
And still just pretend like we were not watching and paying attention. I love how you have on your email, keep talking about Palestine.
I try to always remember to add that to the bottom of my post, because it's too easy for us to. I just was looking on X. I'm still on there doing battle before I signed on, and I saw a picture that I can't forget of two little boys that were dead, toddlers, and my grandson looks just like those little boys. They're all the same little brown and black bodies that are dying around the world.
Right.
And I can't bear it.
Right.
Somebody has to answer for that.
Yeah. Well,
and we're answering for it because Kamala couldn't get elected because she couldn't open her mouth about it.
Yeah, she would not say enough. And they thought that it didn't matter, but it did. And so, we're on a journey, and we're looking for new leaders. We're looking for new leadership, for courageous leadership in and outside of the Democratic Party, because we have got to fight and protect what little shred of democracy we still have. But more importantly, it's about protecting our communities, protecting our seniors who need, the benefits that you worked your whole life for, right?
And protecting my grandchild.
Right, exactly. The future. Our children are watching. On that note, Pam, thank you so much for joining me on Pamela Price Unfiltered. The call to action, folks, is get involved. Hold your Democratic Party representatives accountable. Don't let them cower under the chairs or sit by silently in the middle of this crisis. All right, Pam. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Pamela Price Unfiltered. Since we're talking about the Oakland mayor's race and politics in Oakland, let's talk about how we got here. There was a federal indictment of our mayor and some local businessmen. So we're going to talk about three things. Let's look at how this story unfolds. Let's look at what are the charges, and let's look at what is the evidence so far. The story allegedly begins on October 7th, 2022, when Mario Juarez meets with then candidate Sheng Thao to discuss the purchase of housing units from a housing company owned by Mario and the Duong family. If you don't know who Mario Juarez is, Google him, okay? In return for the mayor using her influence to buy 100 housing units for $30 million, Mario allegedly offers one, to send out a campaign mailer attacking then candidate Thao's opponents in the mayor's race, and two, to pay her partner Andre Jones $300,000. According to the federal indictment, Mayor Thao connects Mario with Andre Jones the next day, October the 8th, via text message. The indictment alleges that Mario and Andy Duong met with the mayor at a fundraiser. The candidate, Thao, at a fundraiser on October 11th, 2022, where they finalized the deal. According to the DOJ, David Duong agreed to pay $75,000 for the campaign mailer attacking then candidate Thao's opponents after they met at the fundraiser on October the 11th. Mario made the arrangements to send out the campaign mailer. Mayor Thao allegedly texts Mario on October the 12th text Andre on October the 12th to get Mario, tell him to get Mario what he needs and connect with him. On October 17th, according to the federal indictment, the Duongs paid Mario $75,000 by check. Mario designed the mailers and a website to go with it and sent out the mailers to Oakland voters on November 1st, 2022. There's an interesting tidbit in the complaint in paragraph 25, because what happened, the mayoral election was held on November 8th, 2022. Thao was declared the winner on or about November 21st, 2022. And on or about November 18th, however, 2022, according to paragraph 25 of the indictment, Mario and Andy Duong exchanged text messages regarding the election. When it became evident that Thao was going to win the mayoral race and that another individual was winning the race in the Alameda County District Attorney's race, Mario texts to Andy, so we may go to jail, but we are $100 million richer. Andy responded, money buys everything, and Mario replied, you're right. Plus, we have a 10-year extension to the recycling company. So they seem to be concerned about the fact that Terry Wiley, their candidate, had lost the DA's election. But I digress. After post-election, the indictment alleges that Mario made a series of payments to Andre Jones. December of 2022, $2,500, $5,000, $2,500. January of 2023, $5,000 and $5,000. Following these payments, the DOJ alleges a series of meetings in March and April of 2023 between then Mayor Thao, Mario, Andre Jones, and the Duongs, where they continued to plan how the city would buy these housing units and Andre would get paid. The indictment alleges that in April, Mario paid Andre Jones another $5,000, and then the housing company paid him $35,000. The indictment alleges that in order to make sure the housing company got the contract for the $30 million, Mario arranged through then Mayor Thao to have Larry Gallegos appointed as interim deputy director of housing and community development. Now, make a note, there's no allegation that Larry Gallegos had or evidence that he did anything wrong or that he even knew about the scheme. Then there was the summer trip to Vietnam that was sponsored by the Vietnamese Business Association, of which the Duongs are prominent members. And both Thao and Jones went on the trip and had some of their trip expenses paid by the association. On November 28th, 2023, the board of directors of the housing company, which is Mario, Andy, and David Duong, had a board meeting and they discussed their deal with Mayor Thao. The next day, the indictment alleges that Andre Jones met with David Duong and gave him a check for $35,000. Finally, the story ends in June of 2024 when the FBI interviews Andy Duong on June the 24th, and he allegedly denies any knowledge of any payments to Jones. So there are 8 counts in the indictment. Count 1, conspiracy to commit bribery. All 4 defendants are in there. Count 2, bribery and aiding and abetting bribery. That count is only alleged against then former Mayor Thao and Andre Jones. It alleges that they solicited and accepted bribes, $75,000 for the mailer and $95,000 in payments to Andre Jones. Count 3, bribery, aiding and abetting bribery. That's against David and Andy Duong. Count 4, conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. All 4 defendants are named in that. And interesting, what is really significant about that count 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all based on the fraud perpetuated on the voters of Oakland. It is a scheme to defraud the people of Oakland, is what is actually alleged in count 4. It's a conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud. Count 5 is mail fraud and aiding and abetting. Count 6 is wire fraud and aiding and abetting. And that's based on the April 28th, 2023 payment of $35,000 to Andre Jones. Count 7 is wire fraud and aiding and abetting based on the November 29th, 2023 payment of $35,000 to Andre Jones. So all 4 defendants are named in those counts. Count 8, false statements to a federal agency. That's against Andy Duong based on his FBI interview in June of 2024. So what's the evidence so far? The FBI says they have text messages, phone records, checks and bank account records, the negative campaign mailer that Mario sent out, the website that Mario created, a recording of the November 2023 board meeting with Mario and the Duongs, the appointment of Larry Gallegos, and Mario Juarez singing like a bird to save his own skin. So there you have it. Will the case make it to court? Who knows? Will Donald Trump pardon David Duong and his son and all of their associates? David Duong received special permission to go see Donald Trump at the inauguration in D.C. after the indictment was unsealed. So we'll see. Maybe he'll get a pardon. Thank you for watching Pamela Price Unfiltered. Let's move on to correct the record. I am not the mayor of Oakland. How many times did I have to say that in 2023? Why did that matter? Because Oakland needed a scapegoat. Let's talk about it. What does the DA do about crime? The district attorney decides whether to file criminal charges and how to pursue the case. The police do not file charges or decide what charges to file or how the case should be prosecuted. The police are not lawyers. The district attorney is not a police officer, a probation officer, or a judge. The district attorney is not responsible for arresting anyone, imprisoning anyone, or releasing anyone. The police send a report about someone suspected of a crime to the DA's office for review and consideration about potential charges. The deputy district attorneys make decisions based on the reports they receive from the police. A deputy DA may decide not to file a case for a number of reasons, such as pretrial diversion, insufficient evidence, further investigation needed, where the conduct did not rise to the level of a crime, or some other alternatives available, such as probation or parole revocations. In 2023, as soon as I became the district attorney of Alameda County, Oakland did not have a police chief. Then Mayor Sheng Thao fired the police chief. She put him on administrative leave in January, and she fired him in February. And so for all of 2023, Oakland had an interim placeholder police chief and did not have leadership to move forward. At the same time, Oakland was subjected to a crime wave that was not found or felt in any other part of Alameda County in the same way. Bippy car burglary, for those who don't know what bipping is, okay, was not a thing in Livermore or Alameda or Albany or Union City or most parts of Alameda County outside of Oakland. The rash of dangerous carjackings that terrorized the residents of Oakland with very limited police responses in 2023 did not occur in other parts of Alameda County. Yet, in 2023, Oaklanders felt like the DA was the person responsible for all of the crime in our city. Oakland needed a scapegoat. Never mind that this was not happening in Alameda or Fremont or Hayward or Livermore, Emeryville, or even Berkeley. But people argued that the DA was responsible for crime in Oakland, but not anywhere else. Oakland needed a scapegoat. Never mind that the solve rate for the Oakland Police Department for homicides in 2022 was one of the lowest in the states. 27% of homicides, that's less than 30% of all homicides, have been solved in 2022. The police scorecard is the first national public evaluation of policing in the United States. The scorecard evaluated over 356 police departments and gave them a score from 1 to 100. Looking at a 10-year period from 2010 to 2021, the score accounts for the proportion of low-level offenses solved, or the proportion of most serious crimes solved versus the approach to the lowest level offenses. It evaluates police departments on how effective they are in actually protecting public safety. Oakland's score was 43%, okay? Oakland spent approximately $317 million a year on police funding, $729 per resident, and our score was only 43%. Compare that to Fremont, whose score was double that of Oakland, 86%, spent $89 million approximately on police funding per year, $377 per resident, but they came up with a score of 86% when it came to evaluating their approach to policing. Hayward, another major area in Alameda County, its score was 71%. Again, much higher than Oakland's. Hayward spent about $73 million on average over that time period, and at $481 per resident. Alameda, small city, but right next door to Oakland, its score was 66%. Spent about $31 million per year on police funding, $395 per resident, got a score of 66%. Berkeley's score was 47%. Oakland had the lowest score in terms of police effectiveness, solving crimes, and having an effective approach to policing than most of the other jurisdictions in the Bay Area, and certainly in Alameda County. So what's the call to action, Oakland? And any jurisdiction where you are spending an inordinate amount of money on police funding per year. Again, for Oakland, the amount of per resident of $729 per resident over that period of time. The call to action: demand more from your police department. Don't accept, well, I can't arrest anybody because the DA won't prosecute them. Don't accept, well, I can't do my job because if I arrest them, they're going to get out of jail anyway. Don't accept long response times due to mismanagement and hiring and training within the department. Don't allow the police chief to say, well, we can't do our job. The officers are afraid to do their job because we might get disciplined. Insist that your mayor holds the chief and his entire command staff accountable for excellent service. Hold the department accountable for constitutional policing. Insist that the department commit to community engagement versus community policing. Thank you for joining me on Pamela Price Unfiltered.